I thought was that this is graphing in something you did in Algebra 1. Apparently, we're not fans of graphing.
No, you're not.
So, you know what? I don't know what to tell you. I'm gonna teach it to you like you don't already know it. That's the good news. Like we're gonna go over. I'm not gonna say you should already know this. Okay? I'm gonna teach you. Today we're gonna talk about. This is now gone from linear equations with one variable to linear equation with two variables. It's still linear, so we're still talking about lines, but we're going to talk about things like slope, y-intercept, and then graphing today. And then part 2 of section 1, which is going to be on Friday, is finding the equation and given that information, so kind of working backwards. So we start with the 3 major forms of lines. The first is called slope-intercept, and this is one most people seem to remember, which is y equals mx plus b. See?
Oh, okay, this isn't that bad.
I told you.
Right now. Well, I thought we were already okay.
We are just on slide 2, but yeah.
I just scrolled down.
Yeah.
We're on the first thing. Okay. I thought we were already getting into like the.
We're okay, right? We're okay.
Yeah.
So the m is your slope, which is how steep your line is. 0b is your y-intercept. So the intercept, and you'll see it on WebAssign 2, it will be in coordinate point form like that, 0, b. Then you get point slope, which a lot of times, like I prefer point slope if I'm finding the equation. So a lot of times in like the next part of the section, what we do on Friday, I use point slope to plug into. In point slope, the x1, y1 is the point, and the m is the slope. The x and the y will actually stay the x and the y, just like they do with slope-intercept. And then the last one is called standard form, and this is ax plus by equals c. There is no fractions or decimals in standard form, and x must be positive. So a lot of times equations will say put this equation into standard form, and so that's what you're doing. You're getting rid of any fractions or decimals, and then you're moving the equation around to the x and the y on the same side, and the x is positive. You don't usually plug into standard form, okay, like you would in point slope or slope intercept. But again, that's what we're going to talk about more on Friday, is getting the equations. Good so far? Yeah? Okay. All right, so slope can be written a lot of different ways. The change in y over the change in x. It's also known as rise over run. And if I'm given 2 points, then I would find slope by doing y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Biggest mistake is just switching the x's and the y's. So remember the y's go in the top here. It's rise, which is up and down, over run, which is left and right. If I ask you to find the x-intercept, you're going to plug 0 in for y, and the answer would be in that format. Whatever the number is, comma, 0. And if you're looking at a graph, it's where it intersects the x-axis. If I ask for the y-intercept, you're going to plug 0 in for x. And then the format on that is 0, comma, the number. And on a graph, it's where it intersects the y-axis. I can't remember what you have to fill in. Do you have to fill in on that side?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anybody still coming down?
I'm having deja vu from my Algebra 1 classroom.
That's a good thing, though. That means at some point your memory has stored some of this information. That's always a good thing.
I remember the trauma.
All right, then there's 2 special cases when you're looking at lines, the vertical and the horizontal lines. When you're looking at a vertical line, the slope is undefined or no slope. And your equation is x equals a number, and there will be no y in it. So if I said x equals 3, I know this to be a vertical line that passes through the x value of 3. Straight up and down, straight through 3. If it's horizontal, my slope is 0. And the equation is y equals a number. So let's just say it was y equals 3. Now I know it's a horizontal line. So if you've ever been on a treadmill and you're trying to picture slope on a treadmill, right? If it's flat, what's your incline at? 0, which is horizontal, yes? A flat, horizontal, yes? Okay, if you could somehow get your treadmill to go straight up and down, there'd be no slope to grip on, okay, or undefined slope. And then in between, the higher the number, the steeper it is, right? That's your slope. If you could do a decline, like you're walking down a hill, that would be a negative slope. That's going to bring you down. Okay. All right, so we're going to graph these. We're going to graph them all on the same, so I'm just going to like kind of color code them. I'm going to graph this first one. So there's a lot of different methods you could use to graph, okay? But if it's in slope-intercept form, which that first one is, then my recommendation is to start at the B, which is on the y-axis, and then use the slope to get the additional points. So if I look at y equals mx plus b and compare it to this equation, my b is 1, positive 1, and 2/3 is my slope. So plus 1 here, up 2 to the right 3, down 2 to the left 3. That's frightening. And draw your arrows. Okay, the number 2, again, also in slope-intercept form. So the b is positive 1. Again, I'd start at positive 1, but this time my slope would be negative 1/4, down 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right 1. Or up 4 and to the left 1. Again, as long as one or the other that time gets the negative, it doesn't matter which one. And again, you need 2 points to plot that line. Okay, so now what's different with 3?
There's a variable in one.
Good. It's not solved for y yet. Easy thing to do would just be divide everything by 3. When you divide, we literally mean everything. So both the terms on the other side of the equal sign get that. So the 3's cancel here, and I get y equals 2/3 x minus 1/3. I had to divide everything by 3. So what's my b? Negative 1/3. So this is not going to be perfect, but I know it's going to be a little less than half. It's going to be somewhere around there. And then from there, I'm going to go up 2 and to the right 3, or down 2 and the left 3, and then I draw my line. So if it's a fraction, I do not expect it to be exact, but obviously it should fall in the right frame. Needs to be in between 0 and negative 1. And then from there, you want to count your slope. So WebAssign is going to ask you for slope and y-intercept. My slope here would be 2/3. My y-intercept is going to be 0, negative 1/3. So y-intercept is in the 0, comma, b format.
So if it's like a fraction, like 1/3 on WebAssign, are they gonna like mark it wrong if you graph it a little off or something?
So the graph on WebAssign is super frustrating, and I wouldn't even recommend doing it. If you have a computer at home, it's actually really good, but from the iPad, it's really glitchy. So you're just going to take a picture, put it in Notability, graph it in Notability. Yeah. You can't graph on Canvas anyway, so a question like this, you would have to graph by hand, so you might as well just do it. Yeah, there's like 2, well, maybe 1 or 2 that are multiple choice, and you get to pick it, but the rest you're just going to graph by hand. Yep.
Don't answer the question now.
So answer, I mean, you guys are gonna get upset because it's not gonna be a check, but it's gonna be marked wrong. But I'm gonna look for your graph. You can answer the slope and the y-intercept part, but leave the graph blank. Don't stress yourself out about it. Like I said, some people I know at home have like computers and they've been doing it on home and it works good. But the app is super glitchy on the iPad, so just ignore it and just screenshot it.
Can we try?
Sure. I literally couldn't get it to even give me a dot.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really weird. Okay, so for 3y equals 5, again, it's not set equal to y, right? So I can divide both sides by 3, and I get y equals 5/3. So what's different this time? Doesn't have an x, which means? Say again. M is 0. The slope is 0. Yeah. You sound so sure in yourself. It is horizontal. Slope is 0. My y-intercept is going to be 0 5/3. So there's a b there, but there's no x, which means there's no slope, right? Slope is 0. So and there's no way to plot points here, which means you have to know if it's a y and not an x, it's a horizontal line. They look like the opposite axis. So if I get a y without an x, it doesn't look like the y-axis, it looks like the x-axis, which is horizontal. And if I get an x without a y, it looks like a vertical line, okay? The other way to do it is, think about it. If y is always 5/3, then if I went to my graph, I would find 5/3, which is the same thing as 1 2/3. I would go to 1 2/3, and my y is always 1 2/3. So that's the other way I can remind myself that this is a horizontal line. So the y is unchanging if it's a y equals. The y is always the value that they give you, which means it is a horizontal line.
Wait, so you graphed 5/3?
I went to 5/3, which is 1 2/3, so you're going to have to convert it into a mixed number when you graph. And then I put a horizontal line straight through there. So you don't need all those points. I was just showing you that y is always going to be that, so it makes it horizontal. Okay, and then the last one, 2x equals 1. There's no y this time, which tells you it's going to be what?
Up and down.
It's going to be up and down or vertical. What kind of slope is a vertical line? Good. Undefined or no slope. Same thing. I think on WebAssign it says undefined. And I have to solve for x. So I would divide and I would get x equals 1/2.
Wait, why is it undefined?
Because it's a vertical line.
So the first one is automatically.
Yep. And there's no y-intercept here. So I would go to where x equals 1/2, which is here, and I draw a vertical line straight through it. If you forget that it's vertical, remember all the values of x would have to be 1/2, and if I just went up and down marking 1/2, 1/2, 1/2, 1/2, 1/2, 1/2, then it would give me that vertical line. Questions on that one?
Yes.
What?
I have a question on 3. You explained it and then it went in one ear and out the other.
Okay. What part? Like the dividing by 3 at the beginning?
I got how you divided by 3.
Yep.
And then you got it in slope intercept form.
Yep.
And then you got how m is 2/3, which is the slope.
Yep.
And then you got the y-intercept, which is b, which is -1/3.
Yep. So then I plotted that point, which was here, this one here, and then I went up 2 and right 3 and plotted a different point, and I went down 2 and left 3 because you could also go in that direction.
I forgot you always start.
It's rise over run
I forgot you always have to start the graph
at the B.
y-intercept.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's where.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow.
All right, now they're in a little bit different form. I've got -3x plus 2y equals 6. And I kind of have two options here. I'm going to show you one option, then I'll show you the other, okay? One option is to solve this for y. So I'm going to add the 3x. I'd get 2y equals 3x plus 6. Then I would divide everything by 2. And I get y equals 3/2 x plus 3. Now it's in slope-intercept form, which is what we're used to. My m is 3/2. My y-intercept is 0, 3. I go to my graph. I plot my 0, 3. I go up 1, 2, 3, and to the right 2. And I draw my line.
The y-intercept is always 0 and then that number?
Correct. Good.
I actually wrote 13 instead of 3, and I was like,
Oh,
that's
okay.
off.
So the other option with something like this, which is almost in standard form, it's not quite in standard form because the x is positive, but when you've got the x and the y on the same side, and they would all divide evenly into the one on the right, then you can also find your intercepts and plot those. So if I found my y-intercept, I'd plug 0 in for x. This would go away. I'd get 2y equals 6 and y equals 3. So my y-intercept would be 0, 3. And then I could do the same thing for my x-intercept, which is plug 0 in for y. 3x plus 2 times 0 equals 6. Negative 3x equals 6, and x equals negative 2. And then I can use those 2 points to draw my graph. So I would go 0, 3, which is here, negative 2, 0, which is here, and connect them. I make the same line.
Wait, was that just a different way of doing it?
Yep. You are eventually going to have to do the x and the y-intercepts. So you need to know how to do this, but you don't have to choose that method to graph it. So this is to find the y-intercept. We plug 0 in for x, so I plug 0 into that x.
And then you put 0 for y.
And then for the x-intercept, we plug 0 in for y.
Okay. Not really hard.
And I would only recommend graphing that way is if the numbers, the coefficients on the x and the y go in evenly into 6, because those are easy. 3 and 2 both go into 6. Okay, if you have the choice.
And then you just keep plotting it like that. Like
You only have to plot those 2 points, and then you would just draw right through them. Yep. If it asked you for the slope and the y-intercept, you're going to have to get it into slope-intercept form anyways. Just know you have that option. Okay, so 7, I got to get the y on the other side, or I have to move the 3 over here with the 3x. Doesn't matter which order I do that in. So negative 3x minus 3 equals 2y. And then I'd have to divide everything by 2. So I'd get negative 3 halves x minus 3 halves equals y, or y equals negative 3 halves x minus 3 halves. Just converted it to the right side. So my slope, negative 3 halves, my y-intercept, 0, negative 3 halves, or negative 1.5. Yep.
Why is it negative? We would have like 2y equals 3x plus
3x, it would be negative 3x minus 3. So I moved the 3 on the right to be the side on the left.
3. But like, let's say you made the 2y on the other side.
So if I left the 2, if I moved the 2y over here, it would be negative 2y minus 3x equals 3.
Oh.
Then I'd have to add this, but then I'd have to divide by a negative 2.
Oh, okay.
So either way, it makes that negative. Okay, so now I'm going to plot that one. My y-intercept is 3 halves, which is 1.5. Oh, negative 1.5, sorry. Negative 1.5. And my slope is negative 3 over 2. So I can go down 3 to the right 2, or keep the negative with the bottom and go up 3 and to the left 2. Again, whichever one you choose to do doesn't matter. If it's negative, you can either keep it with the top or the bottom. You just can't do it for both. So this is the pink one. This is the purple one. All right, now look at 8. What do we notice about 8?
Doesn't have
There's no y. So if it's an x equals, what kind of line is this going to be?
undefined.
The slope's undefined. Vertical. Good. So I'd get 4x equals 6. X equals 6 over 4, or 3 halves. My slope is undefined. And my y-intercept is 0, 3 halves. So I go up to 1.5. And I draw, there is no y-intercept. I go over to 1.5 and I draw a straight line through it. All right, now we get to 9, okay? 9 has 2/3 x plus 4y equals 7. So let's say I want to solve this for y. For,
For
Mhm.
this one that you just did.
Yep.
That point is the 3/2.
Yep, or 1.5. So when you go to plot those points, you're going to have to convert them to mixed number. Number 9, I'm going to first move my 2/3 to the other side. So I get 4y equals negative 2/3 x plus 7. And then I have to divide everything by 4. So I get y equals, now 2/3 or negative 2/3 divided by 4. If I did keep, change, flip there, it'd be the same thing as multiplying by 1/4. So a fraction divided by something, right? We would keep, change, flip. 2/3, negative 2/3 divided by 4 becomes negative 2/3 times 1/4. Okay, so 2 goes into 4 twice, and this becomes negative 1/6. So y equals negative 1/6 x plus 7/4. My slope is negative 1/6, and my y-intercept is 0 7/4, which is the same thing as 0 and 1 3/4. So let me match my color. 7/4 means I go to 1 3/4. My slope is negative 1 and 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or you could go up 1 and left 6. Either way, you should get that same line. Yep.
Could you get rid of fraction by multiplying?
You can. It just comes back in at the end, but absolutely. Yeah, so the question, I don't know if you heard her from home. The question was, could you get rid of that 2/3? You can multiply everything by 3. Get rid of the fraction, and then at the end, you'll just have to bring it back in. It's still the same thing. Like the last step, you'll divide by it again, and it will bring it back in. But yes, you absolutely can. All right, last one on this slide, I just have to divide by negative 3. So I get y equals 2/3 x plus 1/3. My slope is 2/3. My y-intercept is 0 and 1/3. So I go to 0, 1/3, plot a point, and I go up 2 and to the right 3. Questions on those? So they're going to be in lots of different formats, okay? Usually the easiest thing to do is just solve it by getting into y equals mx plus b format, and then find your slope and find your y-intercept. Questions? All right, so these just say find the slope. So we're not graphing these, we're finding the slope. If we're given our equation in slope-intercept form, we can just find the m. If we're not, we want to get it in slope-intercept form. And if we're given the points, we use y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, okay? So for number 11, this is already in y equals mx plus b form, right? What's my slope? 3. If I was to graph it, I would do 3 over 1. But if I'm just stating my answer, it's just 3. All right, what would you do with 12? Subtract the 1. 2y equals 6. And then divide by 2, and y equals 3. So if it's a y equals and there's no x, what kind of line is it? Horizontal. And if it's horizontal, what's my slope? Good, 0.
So why would you subtract 5 from 1?
Because you got to get y on the side by itself.
Okay.
Yeah. 13 is the first one. I'm just given the 2 points. So I'm going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I can call this x1, y1. Remember the first one in the parentheses is your x. And this can be x2, y2. So I would get 7 minus 3 over 4 minus 4. And I get 4 over 0. What's 4 divided by 0?
0.
Nope. Nope.
On
It's undefined. It's the most common mistake made. If the zero is in the bottom, remember all those rational equations, we couldn't have zero in the bottom, right? Because it's undefined.
Can you go back to 12?
Mm-hmm. So if you have time and you're like unsure about your slope, you can always plot those points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 means I have a line that passes through those 2 points, which makes it vertical, which makes the slope undefined.
Does it matter which one's for y1?
Nope, as long as you use the same number in the parentheses. So I can't do like an x1 and a y2. But you could have switched, I could have made this x2, y2, and x1, y1. The order there doesn't matter.
Okay, but you can't have like.
I can't pull one coordinate from one and then the other coordinate, yeah.
12 was horizontal.
12 was horizontal, yep. Which means slope is 0. All right, what do I do with 14? Divide everything by 2, which is the same thing as multiplying by a half, right? So if I've got a fraction, 2/3 divided by 2 is the same thing as 2/3 times a half, which is 1/3. I get equals 1/3 x minus 1/2. What's my slope? 1/3.
My whole notes just like deleted. Like, has that ever happened? Like, would you know?
And it didn't come back every single slide?
Only like the top 2 like fill-in notes that I wrote. Those are the ones that stayed. Like it kicked me out, and then all of them deleted.
Okay, I mean, I could share the PDF at the end with you,
Thank you.
but yeah, just make sure you're backing up, so in case it happens again. All right, now look at 15. What would you do? Subtract the 2x. 3y equals negative 2x plus 5, and then divide by 3. I don't even have to figure out what 5/3 is. I don't even have to go to that last one because the only thing I want from this equation is the slope. So as soon as I get the negative 2/3, I'm done with this. If it had asked for slope and y-intercept, obviously I need that last one. All right, so I'm going to show you a shortcut to slope when it's in standard form. So remember standard form, this is standard form. Standard form says x and y are on the same side. There's no fractions or decimals, and x is positive. The shortcut for slope here is negative a over b. Over b. I wrote it sideways, but yeah. So a is what's in front of the x, negative 2, over b is what's in front of the y, 3. Same answer, okay? Only if it's in standard form does that work. So negative a over b. And again, standard form, they have to be on the same side, no fractions, no decimals, and x has to be positive.
Wait, so it's a over b minus the slope?
No, negative a over b is the slope.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so the top one has to be negative?
Or it will be negative if it's in standard form, yeah. But then the bottom could also be negative. So the answer doesn't have to always be negative. So like,
Does it not make it positive? They're both negative.
right, that's what I'm saying. It's not always negative, yeah. So if my equation was 3x minus 4y equals 10, then my slope is negative 3 over negative 4, which is 3/4. Again, shortcut that only works if it's in standard form. If it's in standard form, you take the opposite of what's in front of the x over the opposite of what's in that. If that confuses you, don't use it. It's a shortcut. You don't need it.
Opposite of what's in front of the x.
Over opposite of what's in front of the y. No, over what's in front of the y. Negative a over b. So the opposite of what's over the x over what's in front of the y.
And that gives you the slope?
That gives you the slope. If it's in standard form.
Okay, it sounded a lot more confusing. Okay.
Yeah.
Looking at, okay, that makes, I don't know why that sounds
Okay, now look at 16. Okay, we're back to the points. So I would get x1, y1, x2, y2, 3 minus 3 over 4 minus 5, 0 over negative 1. And what's 0 divided by negative 1? 0. So if the 0's in the top, it's 0. If it's in the bottom, it's undefined. Yes. I like the verbal confirmation, like, yes, you are right. Yes, that is true. 0 in the top, 0, 0 in the bottom, undefined. And if I plotted that point, those points, what kind of line should I have gotten?
A horizontal.
Good, a horizontal line. So the x changed, but the y did not. It would be a horizontal line. Questions so far? We good from home? A lot of black slides today. I'm sure they're very on top of things. All right, same type of question, just new examples. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes and I'm going to let you do this. Try the shortcut on number 17 and then compare it if you want to go the long way around, but try the shortcut because it works.
I don't get what the shortcut is for.
It's to find the slope,
Standard form.
only if it's in standard form. So try it and then I'll go. All right, so what's the shortcut for 17 to get to the slope? Negative a over b, which would be? Negative 3 over 4. Long way around, subtract the 3x, 4y, and it's not that much longer, plus 5, and then divide everything by 4. Y would equal negative 3/4 x plus 5/4. Same answer, okay? Negative 3/4 should have been the slope. 18, 5 minus 2 over 4 minus a negative 3, which becomes plus 3. 3 over 7 should be your slope. Number 19 has an x equals without a y, which tells me what, oh, I divided by the wrong thing. Tells me what about my slope? Good, it's an x equals vertical line, undefined slope. And 20, negative 5 minus a negative 2 becomes plus 2 over negative 3 minus a negative 1 becomes plus 1. Negative 3 over negative 2, which becomes positive 3 halves. Questions? Okay.
I added or subtracted wrong for 18. I don't know.
I feel like that's a statement, not a question.
Why?
I don't know. 5 minus 2, you have that part right? And then 4 minus a negative 3.
I
That,
did the first set of parentheses and then 2.
don't do that. Yeah.
Does it have, like, the negative have to be, like, on the 3, or can it just negative 3 and 4?
You can rewrite that. Which one are you talking about?
Like 17.
17. When you write it in, it could be negative 3 over 4. It could be negative 3 over 4. Or it could be 3 over negative 4. It doesn't matter where that negative is as long as it's only with one of those places. Yep, good question. So when you're answering these things on WebAssign, which obviously is where your homework tonight, remember you're going to screenshot your graphs and pull them into Notability. You can try, but as far as I know, you can even guinea pig it right now if you'd like. The WebAssign was not working to graph on the iPad. So